Welcome back to Escape from Hamas. As you have seen, Mossab Hassan was born into the top tier of Hamas leadership. So what did that mean when he was growing up? Once again, Jonathan Hunt.
Mossab Hassan is building a new life in Southern California. It could hardly be more different to the life he was born into. Poverty, violence and death on a daily basis made the West Bank of the Jordan River one of the toughest places in the world to grow up at the height of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But for Mossab Hassan, it was simply home, the only home he knew.
I didn't leave the West Bank till I was 20 years old.
And he can't forget the streets he walked as a child.
My best place is my town. I love my town.
Ramallah.
Ramallah.
You'll go back there?
Hopefully soon.
The memories he cherishes the most are of the games he played as a young boy.
Like running outside in the nature, playing soccer.
You had a soccer ball?
Yeah, I had a soccer ball. And
where did you play?
My favorite spot was the cemetery, actually.
You played soccer in the cemetery?
In a cemetery.
This is that cemetery here in the heart of Ramallah, next to Mossab's old home. As you can see from the thousands of headstones here, what was once a largely empty space is now filled, and many of these tombs contain the bodies of Palestinian fighters. It was December 1987. The first intifada or uprising began. Palestinians took to the streets, fighting running battles with Israeli tanks and troops. Mossab Hassan was 10 years old.
The first intifada breaks out and everything changes.
Definitely. Everything's changed, but still, like, you believe this is your destiny. This is your life and you have to deal with it.
But do all the kids go from playing soccer in the cemetery to throwing stones at Israeli tanks?
We did both.
That became a part of life for you, confrontation with Israeli soldiers.
Of course. That was like part of my life.
And the Ramallah cemetery, site of so many impromptu soccer games, was now the scene of chaotic and impassioned burials.
My house was next to this cemetery, and every day of the first intifada, for 4 years, I was living there. I used to see dead bodies coming every day.
You were 10 years old and seeing dead bodies?
I was 10 years old, yeah.
But even before the Intifada, Mossab Hassan's view of Israel and of Islam had been shaped by his father, Sheikh Hassan Youssef, a founding figure of Hamas, the radical movement which was founded with two overriding goals: to destroy Israel and to build a hardline Islamic state in its place.
What's your first memory of your father actually educating you in his beliefs?
My father had no time to sit down and teach me, but he used to take me with him everywhere he goes, to villages, refugee camps, cities, everywhere, preaching almost every day, several times. So I was hearing him, like, preaching every time.
Did you hear him talking about Israel as an enemy at a young age?
About Israelis as occupation force, as enemies of Palestinians, enemies of Muslims, of course.
So you grew up in a spiritually and politically very active family.
Oh yeah, definitely, no doubt.
Mossab, like most 10-year-olds, worshipped his father.
He's the best. He's doing everything for his own people.
But as the Intifada intensified, the Israelis came for Sheikh Hassan Youssef.
The Israeli soldiers knocked our door, and they came into the house, saw my father, asked for his name, and he said his name. That's it. They took him. They told us we're going to return him after 5 minutes.
When did they return him?
A year and a half later.
Mossab Hassan claims that his father was never directly involved in any acts of terror.
I know for sure that he doesn't have direct participating in this process, but he has indirect by praising suicide bombers.
Through a series of interviews, I pressed Mossab Hassan on that claim.
How can you convince someone that your father, again, as a leader of Hamas for many years, never signed off on a single suicide bombing, never had knowledge that a particular bomber was heading to Jerusalem or Tel Aviv at any particular time?
I'm not saying that he's not responsible, by the way. I think everybody sits there and prays a suicide bomber is partner in this process. Because I know him on the personal level. He's not willing to carry explosive belt and go kill other people. I know this about him as a person.
But is he able to send others to kill?
He never sent somebody, not because he didn't want this to happen. Because the Hamas movement works in a very intelligent way. Political wing, military wing, security wing. So my father, for his position as a well-known leader and other Hamas leaders, they don't interfere with the military wing.
Could that really be true? I didn't want to take just Mossab Hassan's word for it, but I couldn't ask his father directly because Sheikh Hassan Youssef is still in an Israeli prison and the authorities would not allow us to talk to him. Mossab's other family members refused our interview requests, so I turned to Avi Issacharoff, an Israeli journalist and author who specializes in covering Hamas and has known Sheikh Hassan Youssef for more than a decade.
So when his son, Mossab, says, my father had no direct involvement in the planning or carrying out of any suicide attacks, you believe that?
Yes, I do believe him. The Israeli army, the Israeli intelligence, in each and every chance that they had to accuse someone of being involved in any kind of a murder, they would have gone and done it against Hamas officials, of course. They didn't do it this time. The only accusation that they have against him is being a member or being a leader of Hamas.
What, though, about Hamas's sort of collective responsibility?
At the end, he was in one line with all the other Hamas's leaders, maybe because he didn't have any other option, but this is what he did. So I think that he has some responsibility for that, or maybe you can say moral responsibility.
But in that phrase that is often used here, you would say that he does not have blood on his hands, or he does have blood on his hands?
I would say that he doesn't have any blood on his hands.
But for Israel, Mossab Hassan's father was a marked man because he advocated and celebrated terrorism. Over the next decade, Sheikh Hassan Youssef would be arrested at least 16 times, spending more time in Israeli jails than he did here at home in Ramallah. Mossab, meanwhile, was following in his father's footsteps, joining the Islamic youth movement and quickly rising to become a leader of that militant organization. And when Hamas began one of the most deadly wave of bombings Israel has ever seen, Israeli authorities thought Mossab Hassan might have blood on his hands. That's next.